Your body is not malfunctioning. Your body is remembering. Right now, at this very moment, your cells are reading chemical instructions that were written by your grandmother during the famine she survived, by your great grandfather during the war that starved him, by ancestors 10 generations back who barely made it through winters with no food. These survival instructions are encoded on your DNA through something called epigenetic markers, chemical tags that tell your genes which survival program to activate. And here's what nobody's telling you: these programs are still running right now in your body. Your slow metabolism, that's not a personal failure. That's your body following famine survival instructions that say store every calorie as fat because food scarcity is coming. Your chronic inflammation, that's your immune system responding to threats your ancestors faced: toxins, infections, environmental dangers that your cells still think are present. Your anxiety, your hypervigilance, your inability to relax, that's a nervous system programmed for constant threat because your ancestors lived in constant danger. You are not broken, you are programmed, and the programming is outdated. I'm about to show you how ancestral survival strategies that have kept your bloodline alive are now destroying your health, how the herbs your ancestors used to survive can now help you release that pattern, and how your nervous system is the key to rewiring the code. This is biology. This is epigenetics. This is the revolution they don't want you to understand, because if you realize you can reprogram your own DNA expression, you become liberated. In 1944, the Netherlands experienced what's called the Dutch Hunger Winter. The Nazis blocked food supplies. 20,000 people starved to death. The survivors, pregnant women especially, were eating 400 to 800 calories a day, barely enough to stay alive. Those babies born during the famine, they grew up with dramatically higher rates of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and mental illness. Not because of their own experiences, because of what their mothers endured while pregnant. But here's where it gets profound. The grandchildren of those famine survivors also showed these same health patterns: higher obesity, metabolic dysfunction, increased disease risk. The trauma of starvation was passed down through two generations who never experienced the famine themselves. This is epigenetic inheritance. Your DNA sequence doesn't change, but the chemical markers on your DNA, the tags that control which genes get turned on or off, those can be passed down. Your ancestors' survival experiences literally tagged your DNA with instructions: prepare for famine, store fat aggressively, don't trust that food will be available, hold on to every resource. And your body is still following those instructions, even though you live in a time of food abundance. This is why diets fail. This is why you can eat perfectly and still struggle with weight. This is why your metabolism seems broken. Your metabolism isn't broken, it's brilliantly following ancient survival code. But it's not just famine. Your ancestors survived wars, plagues, toxic exposures, emotional trauma, persecution. Every survival challenge they faced potentially left epigenetic markers on the DNA they passed to you. Did your grandparents live through the Great Depression? Your body might be programmed to hoard resources and live in scarcity consciousness, even if you have never experienced poverty. Did your ancestors endure persecution, slavery, genocide? Your nervous system might be wired for constant hypervigilance and threat detection, even in safe conditions. Did previous generations work in toxic environments like coal mines, factories, agricultural fields with pesticides? Your liver and detoxification systems might be overwhelmed trying to process toxins that aren't even present anymore. Your body is intelligent. Your body is brilliant. It's doing exactly what it was programmed to do. The problem is the program is running code from threats that no longer exist. And here is something else. The medical system looks at this and says, you have a metabolic disorder, here's a pill. Or you have an anxiety disorder, here's another pill. They're treating the symptoms while completely ignoring that you're running ancestral survival software that needs to be updated. Now, let me tell you about the herbs that have the power to communicate with your epigenetic markers and help clear these ancestral patterns. Because the same plants your ancestors used to survive can now help you release the survival programming. First, it's burdock root. Burdock is what we call an alterative. It's an herb that gradually restores proper function by clearing accumulated waste. But burdock works at a level most people don't understand. Your ancestors used burdock to survive toxic environments. It supports your liver's phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways, the systems that break down and eliminate toxins. But here's what's profound. Burdock also helps clear the metabolic memory of toxin exposure. When your ancestors were exposed to environmental toxins, their bodies adapted by upregulating certain detox genes and downregulating others. Those epigenetic changes got passed to you. So even if you're not exposed to the same toxins, your body is still running the same detox patterns, which can create inflammation and metabolic dysfunction. Burdock helps restore balance. It's deeply nourishing, full of inulin, minerals, antioxidants. It feeds your gut bacteria. It moves lymph. It clears heat from the blood in traditional Chinese medicine terms. But energetically, burdock is doing something more. It's helping your body release the pattern of toxic burden that's been inherited. Next herb is dandelion. Dandelion, that weed everyone kills, is one of the most powerful liver restoration herbs on earth. And your liver is where epigenetic reprogramming happens. Your liver processes everything: hormones, toxins, metabolic waste, emotional chemistry. When your liver is congested with inherited patterns of toxic storage, it cannot function optimally. Dandelion root stimulates bile production and flow. Bile is how your liver eliminates fat soluble toxins and excess hormones. But dandelion also contains compounds that support methylation. That's the biochemical process that controls epigenetic markers. Proper methylation is essential for turning genes on and off appropriately. When methylation is disrupted, you get stuck in old patterns. Dandelion is bitter, and bitter herbs specifically stimulate digestive function and liver detoxification. Your ancestors knew that bitter plants cleanse. Modern people avoid bitter flavors and wonder why their bodies can't eliminate properly. Next herb is milk thistle. Silymarin, the active compound in milk thistle, is one of the most researched liver protective substances in existence. It regenerates liver cells. It protects against oxidative damage. It supports phase 2 detoxification. But here's what's fascinating. Milk thistle also influences gene expression. Studies show silymarin can modulate the expression of genes involved in inflammation, detoxification, and cellular protection. It's literally helping reprogram how your genes respond. If your ancestral line dealt with alcohol exposure, environmental toxins, or metabolic dysfunction, milk thistle is helping your liver remember a healthier baseline. It's saying to your cells, you don't have to run the survival program anymore. There's a different way. Next, there's schizandra. In traditional Chinese medicine, schizandra is also the five flavor berry because it contains all five tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent. This is significant. A plant that contains all flavors is considered energetically complete, able to tonify all organs. Schizandra is an adaptogen, but it works differently than others. It has a unique ability to help your body adapt to stress at a cellular level while also supporting liver detoxification and protecting against oxidative damage. Research shows Schizandra can influence the expression of genes related to stress response, antioxidant production, and cellular protection. It's helping your cells remember resilience instead of survival mode. If your ancestors lived through prolonged stress, and whose didn't, Schizandra helps interrupt that stress inheritance pattern. It's teaching your nervous system and cellular function that adaptation is possible without breakdown. Next herb is rhodiola. Rhodiola is an Arctic plant that survives extreme cold and harsh conditions. The harshness of its environment makes it powerful medicine for those carrying inherited stress patterns. Rhodiola works on your HPA axis, the stress response system, but it also influences the expression of genes related to stress adaptation, energy metabolism, and nervous system function. If your ancestral line endured war, persecution, chronic threat, rhodiola is one of the most powerful herbs for interrupting that inheritance. It literally helps reprogram your stress response from constant survival mode to responsive adaptation. Studies show it can improve cortisol regulation, enhance mental clarity, reduce fatigue, and support emotional resilience. It's not suppressing your stress response, it's helping upgrade it from ancestral survival code to present modern wisdom. Here's what ties this all together. Your nervous system is the interpreter of epigenetic information. Your nervous system reads your environment and decides which genes to express and which to silence. When your nervous system is stuck in sympathetic dominance, fight, flight, or freeze, it's constantly sending signals to your cells that say, we are in danger, activate survival genes. And those survival genes, many of them were tagged by your ancestors' experiences. So your nervous system isn't just responding to your current stress, it's activating genetic programs written by generations of stress and survival. This is why nervous system regulation is not optional. You cannot heal inherited patterns while your nervous system is broadcasting survival signals 24/7. When you regulate your nervous system, when you shift into parasympathetic dominance, when you activate your vagus nerve, when you create coherence between your heart and brain, you are literally changing the signals being sent to your DNA. You're telling your epigenome the famine is over. The war is over. The threat has passed. You can release the survival programming now. And your cells listen because they're always listening. They've been waiting for this signal. This is why the herbs I mentioned work synergistically with nervous system practices. Burdock and dandelion are clear in the physical manifestations of ancestral patterns. Milk thistle is protecting and regenerating. Schizandra and rhodiola are directly influencing gene expression related to stress and adaptation. But without nervous system regulation, without deep breathing, without vagus nerve activation, without practices that signal safety, the epigenetic patterns will continue to run in the background. You have to do both, clear the physical burden and reprogram the nervous system that's perpetuating the pattern. So here's how you actually release ancestral programming and reclaim your biology. First, use the herbs that clear inherited patterns. Daily protocol. Burdock root tea or tincture 2 to 3 times daily for deep cleansing. Dandelion root before meals to stimulate bile and support liver methylation. Milk thistle standardized extract 200 to 400 mg daily for liver regeneration and gene expression modulation. Schizandra tincture or powder, especially during times of stress or transition. Rhodiola in the morning to reset HPA axis function and interrupt stress inheritance. These herbs are not quick fixes. They work gradually, deeply, at the level of cellular memory. Give them months, not days. Second, signal safety to your nervous system daily. Your epigenome responds to your nervous system state. You must practice regulation. 10 minutes of deep breathing every morning. Use cold water on your face to activate vagus nerve. Humming, singing, or gargling to stimulate vagal tone. Gentle movement that feels safe and pleasurable. Take time in nature with bare feet on earth, literally grounding the inherited charge. Third, remove what keeps activating survival genes. If you're eating foods that spike and crash your blood sugar, you're sending famine signals to your cells. Stable blood sugar through whole plant foods and adequate protein. If you're chronically sleep deprived, you're activating stress genes. Sleep is non-negotiable for epigenetic reprogramming. If you're consuming inflammatory foods, toxins, or living in chronic stress, you're reinforcing the ancestral survival patterns instead of releasing them. Fourth, consciously acknowledge the inheritance. There's power in naming it. My grandmother survived the depression and I carry her scarcity programming. I honor her survival and I release the pattern. I am safe to have abundance. My ancestors endured persecution and I carry their hypervigilance. I honor their vigilance and I release the constant threat response. I am safe to rest. This isn't woo woo. This is you consciously directing your nervous system to update the program. Your body is listening. Your cells respond to intention combined with action. Fifth, understand this is generational healing. When you clear these patterns from your biology, you're not just healing yourself. You're changing what you pass to future generations. You're stopping the inheritance chain. The work you're doing now, regulating your nervous system, using these herbs, removing inflammatory triggers, you're rewiring your epigenetic code so your children or your next generation don't inherit your stress patterns. This is sacred work. This is revolutionary work. This is how lineages heal. You are not supposed to carry what your ancestors survived. The survival patterns were meant to be temporary. Adapt, survive, then release when the threat passes. But the threat never fully passed. Generation after generation kept adding their survival code to the DNA being passed down until you arrived, carrying the weight of inherited programming that's no longer needed. You have the power to complete the cycle, to thank your ancestors for surviving so you could exist, to release the patterns that serve them but are destroying you. Burdock, dandelion, milk thistle, gisandra, rhodiola. These are your allies. They're speaking to your cells in a language older than words, helping you remember that survival mode was never meant to be permanent. Your nervous system holds the key. When you shift from survival to safety, your epigenome follows. Your gene expression changes. Your body starts running new code. Code you're writing through your daily choices. This is your liberation. This is you reclaiming your biology from the past and stepping into present moment sovereignty. If this truth detonated something in your cells, if you feel the recognition of inherited patterns, you're finally ready to release. Drop a comment below. Tell me what ancestral pattern you're clearing. This healing is real. Your DNA is listening and it's ready to be free.